So really lovely to be able to join you. I know some of you from the Crebiz program that was in Bristol, and it's really nice to have the whole group together. My name is Verity MacIntosh. I'm the Pervasive Media Studio producer. So you are in the Pervasive Media Studio. Welcome. I'm guessing for some of you this is the first time you've been here, so I think this is a useful opportunity to try and give you a little bit of context for perhaps why Crebiz is here as opposed to in one of the other kind of campus environments, and to give you a little bit more of a sense of how we operate. Particularly, I've been asked to just speak a little bit about how we do talent development within the studio. So really broadly, the studio is a collection of residents who are coming from industry, from different aspects of the industry, from the creative industries, from computer science, from engineering, from tech companies, and also researchers, and we have a really broad research community within the studio. So it's a really, really broad church of people. We are collectively interested in how creativity and technology can intersect, particularly in the public realm. A lot of the work and the experiments that we do are looking about going beyond screens and beyond kind of click-based experiences into that kind of interesting technology crossover space, which activates people in real life and overlays realities into public space. So that's sort of broadly what we're all interested in. There's about 120 people who are currently in residence with us, some of them all of the time, some of them some of the time, and they are here because they're developing something that they don't know yet. So it's not an office space, it's not an incubator, it's an experimental space. It's a really good place to come when you have a brilliant idea, you don't really know whether there's a market for it, an audience for it, a commercial product for it, you don't know if there's a research outcome that's publishable. It's a really good time to come and base yourself in a community of different types of expertise to explore some of those questions, to do rapid prototypes, to do kind of testing, and to get the kind of collective mind of a really brilliant group of people into the thing that you're trying to do. So for that reason, hopefully it makes really good sense as to why kind of combining creative skills and business skills is fundamentally important to doing that high quality work and to sort of considering that research environment in an interdisciplinary space like this one. We are really passionate about supporting people at all stages of their development. So the reason to be here is because your idea is brilliant, but it doesn't really matter if you're approaching that with 25 years of industry experience or kind of a professorship, or if you're coming straight out of school or out of university. If your idea is really intriguing to us and we think that we can kind of contribute something to that and you can contribute something to this environment, then you're often invited to come here. So for me, it's not just about kind of looking for the people who are really established in industry to be here. It's about looking for where those kind of good questions are coming from, where the new ideas are coming from. And the mix in the studio is very much driven by us trying to curate a balance between wisdom and kind of unthought of new ideas, which often come from people who are at that earlier stage of their development. So there's a few ways in which we try and engineer in that kind of crossover. So there's a few methods by which we support new talent. So one of the ways that we do that is provide emergent new companies an environment to do their first stages of development. Some of you might have noticed those peculiar sort of globe things that are on top of the bookshelves behind you there. That's the various prototype stages of something called the alphasphere. And the alphasphere is a new type of musical instrument that has been specifically designed for musicians who want something that is an instrument to create digital music. So much is being kind of explored and developed in the kind of electronic music space, but often the instrument of your creativity is this guy. It's sort of tapping and dealing with software, and that seems to be a slightly impoverished experience for a lot of very creative musicians who are wanting to have that sort of tactile experience with the music that they're creating, and also to have a performance-driven environment with which to share their music. So coming up with something like the alphasphere was something that hadn't been done before, but has put this kind of extraordinary device in the hands of people who want to express and compose. And it came to us as a sort of an idea that Adam had when he'd just finished his music technology degree. He had a bunch of coffee cups and bits of string and literally balloons stretched over the cups, and he knew where he wanted it to go, but he didn't know how to go about it. So he based his company here from day one, and then over the last 3.5 years, they've taken it through various iteration cycles, all sorts of different funding options and different collaborations, and they're now shipping internationally. So actually Adam and Diego, who are our sort of core founders here, are currently in Hong Kong and Shanghai sorting out supply chains and sorting out different distribution routes. So kind of trusting that untested markets can be grown from scratch is a really important part of what we can do to support talent. I sort of touched on this briefly before. I think one of the best things that we have discovered over the 7 years that we've been doing this is that the really interesting work comes when you don't look to one discipline or look to one aspect, that you kind of create the conditions for different disciplines to come together on a neutral platform and to be able to discover stuff together. So Dance from Spectroscopy is one of the most kind of PR'd projects to have come out of the studio in recent years. And it only exists because a quantum chemist was working with a dance troupe, was working with a computer scientist, was working with a sound technician and a composer, and any number of other myriad people that were brought in from the start to develop the project. Rather than trying to explain it today, I'm going to just quickly try and show you, actually, because it's the sort of thing that's quite visual. So let me have a little... I'm sort of halfway through this video, but just let Dave show you. Okay. So Dance from Spectroscopy is a 360 immersive environment that visualizes the nanosphere. So robust algorithms are running through a high-performance computer to show you in real time what the atmosphere is comprised of. So these little things here are kind of oxygen particles, carbon particles, nitrogen, all of the things that compose the air around you, visualized from the nanosphere to a visible realm. And the way that Dave is moving around the space at the moment is generating the energy of his body. So you are an energy field. All of you are energy fields right now. And the way that you're moving in a space dictates what happens to the air around you. And there's all sorts of interesting quantum things that are happening with molecular tunneling, with forces of attraction and rejection. But it's very hard to kind of get, particularly this age group, to have a kind of a tactile understanding of that and have a relationship to it. So the way that they've been developing this is to create this environment where the way that those year 9s in this case, so 14, 15-year-olds, experience the world is visually and dynamically responsive according to those rigorous quantum physics. So the way that they're moving shows their avatar on the place, and the way that the avatar interacts with the particles is completely accurate in terms of the science involved. So Dave's written papers and been published all over the place, but it's only really when he could connect with a creative community of different practitioners that he can create this kind of dynamic environment. The way that you interact with the particles dictates the way that they move and also the sounds that are generated. So music is kind of composed according to your relationship with the nanosphere. It's a little complicated, but a really evocative experience and a really beautiful one. And in fact, they tour a dance show that goes with this called Hidden Fields to bring that kind of traditional convention of dance into this nanosphere, because dancers are the most in control of their bodies of anyone that you'll ever meet, and they can create some extraordinary effects with this kind of work. So that's a sort of I think my point with that was really the value that we place, and that I think everyone in this environment needs to place on clustering diversity of interests and opinions, and of enabling people to work from the start in that interdisciplinary way. We're very fortunate to have formal relationships now with both the universities in Bristol. They help us to manage and co-author the space. And part of that is that we get to have things like teaching programs here. We get to have embedded researchers. We have PhD students adjunct to some of the startup companies. We have interns here on a pretty rolling basis working with the different practitioners or working directly with us. And through, for example, UI's connection with Taylor's University in Malaysia, we're able to bring in student groups from around the world. So this is a lovely example of how that works. And it absolutely feeds our thinking. When we have new people from different places, we can't help but be influenced by the interesting ideas that come with them. So it's a really vital part of what we do. One of the more kind of extended ways that we get people involved, and we're going to do more of this forever, is something called a new talent residency. So these are designed specifically for people who are at that early stage in their career. They're just emerging in what their thinking is, what they want to do. They perhaps don't really know yet or haven't built their networks or aren't quite sure how next to progress. It can be people who are young people. It can also be people who are pivoting in their careers or who are sort of stepping out of something that they've been doing and looking at this space anew. But it's very much designed for people who are coming at this in their sort of their first thrust of exploring creative technology space. So we do programs that are specifically designed to help them in that respect. We're actually developing one there's a new program that I've just been putting together that will go live next week, which is looking at getting some really concerted resource into authoring a cohort of 3 practitioners who will be able to be here. I've got to stop using the word practitioner, because apparently people think that means the arts. 3 people who have a particular interest in starting something or developing something. And I want them to be doing a 3-month program simultaneously, so that they are each other's peer group. They'll have a £2,000 bursary to be able to support them during that time. They'll have some production support. They'll have access to creative technologists. They'll be encouraged to work with one another, but also have mentors from the extended community who have been selected because of their complementary interests. And we're going to do an intensive kind of 1-week workshop with them to get them going, and then support them for 3 months. So this is kind of a moment in time where we're going, so much brilliant stuff comes when you can champion talent. And there's so little opportunity for those people to do that outside of kind of graduate recruitment processes, that we need to take a stake in this. So that's coming soon. One of the people that came through last year, who won one of our smaller new talent residencies, was a guy called Silas Adekunle, who is extraordinary, who I think some of you met for Crebiz. He's one of those very tenacious individuals, and it was just a pleasure to be able to help him to kind of develop what he was doing. But he put it quite well for me, and he said that being part of the studio has been a fantastic experience for me so far, not only for my business as a startup, but also as an individual. So he says there's always relevant networking opportunities and a space for so many different talents, and therefore new and exciting projects to get involved in. And he's had the opportunity to meet interesting and creative people, and also learn a lot about subjects that are outside of his area of study through the talks. So he's an extraordinary roboticist, and he will conquer the world with his robots regardless of what we do. But his ability to connect out to different disciplines, to work with Ben behind us, who is an extraordinary writer, to think about the narrative constructs of having a robot universe and create backstories and kind of story worlds for these, and to be able to work with test groups who will kind of battle the robots to death or try and look after them to death, has been very useful for him to work out how his robotics company develops. So I think that's just a sort of a little snapshot of, I guess, what we're trying to do, particularly in that skills development space. I've sort of rattled through it, but if there's any questions, I'd be very happy to take them. Thanks.